Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session tonight. I am beyond excited for you to hear from two of our amazing inaugural cohort members, Daniel and Ashley. Before we get started, though, officially welcome to Renew US's panel from our campaign manager training program. If you are interested in joining the campaign manager training program and you're watching this after the fact, please definitely click down to expand on the YouTube information so you can see the application and more about Renew, our tiny 2-second pitch. We are working on building state power for the people. So really investing in individuals, investing in electoral and issue-based politics. And one of the things that we do offer is an 8-week campaign manager program. And these two fantastic folks tonight, I will let them introduce themselves. My name is Jen Brown. I am actually the lead trainer with the Campaign Manager Training Program, and I'm going to turn it over to Ashley and Daniel. Ashley and Daniel, if you could both take a turn introducing yourself, pronouns, and anything you'd like all of us to know, and then we can get started.
Hi, my name is Ashley Cham. I go by she and they pronouns. I'm currently based in Long Island, New York. I was inspired to, I guess, pay attention to what was going on politically during Bernie Sanders' campaign. And I noticed this crazy sense of momentum from the people around me who were sort of influenced by the messages that he was spreading. And I feel like with that exposure generally, that we can sort of like put our heads together to create some sort of momentum to actually see broader change in our communities and also nationally at large. So this program is pretty cool in terms of like getting the specifics of what that change could look like.
Okay, she's good. All right, I'm Daniel Smith. He, him pronouns. I currently reside in Tampa, Florida. And by day, I kind of own my own marketing company and kind of do a lot of content creation. So one thing that made me want to get involved was I worked behind the scenes in communications for a lot of candidates. And I saw that their campaign managers and other people sometimes had no clue what they were doing. So when I saw this training was available, I was like, I need to get in there because that's going to enhance everything that I am trying to do and will allow me to step into the role of being somebody's campaign manager. So thank Jen and the team for allowing me to be here today and look forward to the questions that we'll get about this program.
Awesome. I'm super pumped about this already. Clearly, I'm super pumped about everything, real talk. The first question that I want to ask is maybe a doozy, maybe not. Why not get started hard? If you could wave a magic wand and change anything at a state or local level, what would it be and why?
I think if I could wave a magic wand and change anything, it'll probably be our crazy governor, Ron DeSantis, with this COVID response. I would probably remove him from the equation and make sure that the state got the help and the the things that needed during this COVID response, because right now Florida is just wide open and we even get fined if you ask somebody for their COVID vaccination status. So you can receive a $5,000 fine if you're caught making people produce that vaccination status. So if I could wave a magic wand, that would be one thing other than affordable housing for the state, but that'll be the biggest.
Wow, okay, that was a lot to hear. But for me personally, I guess mine is a little more idealistic. Before kicking it old school, before laws, I would change that person's mind who decided to trade and barter for that first shiny piece of pebble or whatnot. Essentially creating the space that made that pebble more significant than the person who was trading it, than the person who was receiving it. And now we're sort of in this interesting environment where the pebble transforms into paper or a piece of plastic now, and it's more valuable. It holds more power and influence over our lives than words. We feel more personally attached to it than to nature at this point, despite the fact that we are part of nature. And I essentially also want to like set a a maximum age for people to run in political office. But I feel like that might be ageist. I don't know. Get back to me on that. I'll figure it out.
Well, I'll dig in a lot. Don't worry. Thanks for that's. I wanted to kick off with something like that because I know both of you got involved in the campaign manager program for reasons. And a lot of times we forget to do that dreamy thing where it's like, what if we could like snap a finger and everything is changed, or the big thing is changed that we're thinking about. So I'm curious how your experiences through the program might help you work towards those larger goals. Might like anything that came up during the program. Maybe it was a conversation you had with someone in the cohort, meeting with a coach, a class, a speaker. Like what stood out to you as something that might initiate like some action on that big goal of magic wands one day?
Wow, that was a loaded question. I would say like it was interesting just having like the resources of power laid out like in front of me and not feeling like I had to search for little pieces to understand what the picture was ultimately. Having that foundation and having all these resources like I guess the basic keys about basic foundational stuff about fundraising and what it actually looks like to create like an impactful story to engage and what the potential for finding volunteers looks like. It sort of felt a little more reassuring, like I didn't have to like scour for multiple resources to figure out what I was doing. And also having the like environment to collaborate. If someone said something meaningful in class that like summed up something that I was confused about, literally being able to reach out to them and not having to know their email because the Slack was available. And the access to all of the documents that you guys made up and being able to like, I guess like not having to scour 2 million different places to look up the words that don't really necessarily make sense. If that makes sense, because everything was sort of like neatly packed into one nice fine source with more ability to like explore without feeling as like claustrophobic with the amount of information like before you, but also like knowing that the information felt like useful and not just like cluttered, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Ashley. Being able to see the program break down the fundamental basis first and then build up, it definitely made someone who, for me, looking from the outside always in, finally get some, foundations on how things should be run. So now when I do step into that role, it can go from there. It also gave me more of a voice too, because now if I approach somebody in that candidate space, I can talk to them. So I know Jen knows this, but I immediately reached out to Nikki Freed and was like, hey, we got to get DeSantis out of here. And I know how now to work with these things. And I got the tools and things that I can assist your team within this local area. So I'll say it also gave a voice because now I couldn't just come in and try to make something up. I actually have the tools that I need to actually approach the candidates and be able to assist them and give them what I know.
Do you think that like the idea, and this again is more of a thought question than a right or wrong, clearly, do you think that the access to information holds people back from getting involved politically? And like what are ways that we, all of us as part of a movement, allow that information to be more accessible, allow people to know more, bring more people in? And again, this isn't like a right or wrong question. I'm just curious to hear, because both of you brought up like the access to information and not having to scour all over the place. Is that a barrier for people? And how do we push on that?
Yeah, I think it's a very strong barrier because, I mean, it's like they say, if you want to hide something from people, put it in a book. And I think this pandemic, more than anything, has shown us that if people just go off of headlines, they'll never get the basis of the true information that is being pushed out. So having those fundamental resources and being able to know that knowledge and be able to now speak and use the words that are actually supposed to be used in that method, that was definitely a plus to this program, not only just getting through life. And like now I actually read some of the policies and things that come out of Congress instead of just taking what they tell us at the press. I may say, hey, it's 80 pages. Let me break it into these different stages. But once you read it, now you can understand why a certain bill is so important and why it needs to be passed because of the things that are packed into it. And so I think that having those resources is key. And I think I love what the program was doing with that aspect of it.
I would 100% agree with what Daniel said. The accessibility to this sort of spectrum of knowledge is really important. But in the public sphere, it's not as tangible to find coherent sources that actually make sense, that are understandable and digestible. And we're also in this weird age where there's paywalls and campaigns to distort what actual unbiased truth is, when people do get these resources to educate themselves. And it sort of just highlights that more than anything, that the information that's being hidden is more relevant than we give it credit to be. As much as we have access to all of this newfound information on my fancy little shiny box, we don't really use it as effectively as we can. And it's sort of distorted because now, instead of being an open and secure exploration of the internet, it's sort of a box with 4 different names on it. And people don't really go outside to explore what's beyond there. We see that in school as well. If the textbook tells you something, then that's the bare minimum of what you know until somebody tells you anything different. And people are not willing to explore outside of the boxes that we sort of confine ourselves into based on the environment and what our traditions are, what our history is. Sort of up to people who have knowledge to go about spreading it, to enlighten people. Not to sound all cheesy, but not to enlighten people, but to let them know that other things exist out there. And from there, definitely take what you will, in having discernment about the reality that exists beyond your doors. But at least you have an idea of what is, so you can make the definitive idea for yourself rather than having someone jam it into your head.
Awesome. I want to ask one more question before I hop over to Frida's question and a few others that got going on. I think the thing that I'm hearing a lot of you, or both of you, talk about is the word we. And I know you're both amazing organizers. I'm curious to hear why you believe in organizing. Our program is so based in organizing as leadership and organizing as a practice. So what do you think about organizing? What is necessary? How does it incorporate into the political involvement that you're both in right now and hoping to be in the future? What is organizing to you?
I feel organizing to me is recognizing that the voice that you have holds power to, I guess, define the reality of the environment around you. I feel there are active campaigns to distort that idea, whether it being misinformation or censorship or blatant denial of reality. I feel there's sort of this weird connotation of associated with being alive at this point in human history, and with just organizing itself, that sort of gives people who sort of feel entrapped by, I don't know, I like to call it the curated reality. When you feel entrapped by the curated reality and you have exposure to mindsets outside of your own, it sort of highlights the fact that there's more than just you, or more than just your family, or more than just your community, like beyond the walls that you are sort of like beyond the borders that you're sort of like encased in, if that makes sense. With organizing, it just sort of creates like momentum to turn that singular voice into, a chorus, where everyone has a personal stake, and you sort of align causes based on, the truth that you speak in, with truth to power with your voice.
Yeah, I think organizing for me was more that it's important because I'm not the only person that feels and thinks this way. And so being able to find a group of people that also feel and think the same way that I do, and being able to pull them together, and also being able to educate people who may not agree with our viewpoint, but allowing them to see this is why we have this viewpoint, and this is how it could affect the surroundings around us, and then being able to sometimes align ourselves with those people who once just had a negative viewpoint on something, but now they say, oh, this group of people actually educated me on the proper way of how these things are supposed to be. I think that's the importance of organizing this. And then I think also it's pushing people to get out of their own head sometimes. With organizing, you may knock on somebody's door and present them with the proposition, and they may say, I never thought about it that way. So now I can see why I should align myself with these efforts. And I think that's the key in organizing is one. And I think my shirt says it perfectly. It's okay to be awkwardly out there and just kind of have a different approach to how you want to do it, because you may convince somebody based on how you feel that, hey, it is okay to feel this way and to pursue the things that I'm trying to pursue for my community and my state and, for the country.
Absolutely, getting some props going on over here. So diving into like specifics about the program, I like getting to know y'all better, letting everyone see the magic that we all got to see. I'm curious what surprised you about the program, and how did you surprise yourself as you moved through it?
Well, I know I shouted Jen out on Twitter for this because this program definitely pushed me in a way that I did not expect it to be. Like, I expected to just come here and sit and listen to a speaker speak every day. But then when Jen hit that breakout session room and put you in a room with 3 people you had never met before in your life, and now you had to speak about, how you felt, and also get them on the same page with what was going on. I think that surprised me most about the program was that this isn't going to be something where you're just going to sit back and come in every week or whatever day you choose and just sit back and say, hey, I'm just going to sit here and listen. No, you're going to actively, when you leave this program, you're going to know how to do the things that you are put in the program to learn how to do. You're not just going to be able to say, oh, I got to go back and read about that. No, we actually worked on those things every day. So I think that's what surprised me the most about myself and the program was being, sometimes when people would come into those breakout sessions and be quiet, I'd have to come off mute and be like, all right, guys, let's get started. We got 6 minutes. Let's, you found sometimes those leadership qualities in yourself that you didn't know you had to go from there. And then the other part was they didn't jump into our rooms and kind of guide us on what we needed to do. Once you jumped in those breakout sessions, it was on you and your group to come back with a response to whatever you were put in there to do. So that was, surprised me about the program, but also was a good thing. It surprised me about myself.
I would 100% say the same thing about that. What surprised me about the group was like, not only how organized it was, I've like participated in like Zoom workshops before, where like just as you described, you just have the person who's the speaker and everyone else would sort of be doing their own things. Sometimes you could actually see it on the video and otherwise no, but like with everything, it was sort of like short form where we sort of got to be introduced to a brand new topic every day, and we sort of got an opportunity to practice and give positive feedback to other people who are practicing. And that sort of like helped us align to like the basis of the reality of what we're supposed to be doing in that moment. Like being introduced to fundraising when you don't know about fundraising sort of makes the research a lot less intimidating, because now that I have some foundational ideas about what to expect, I can start doing the research and resourcing to figure out how to make that work rather than like aimlessly falling around for it. And also those breakout rooms, brilliant. it's like exactly what you said, because there wasn't really a teacher or instructor breathing on your neck. You sort of had to align with the other people who were in the room with you to the cause. And because there was a time limit, we're just like, gotta figure this out in such and such time, or make sure everyone speaks. So having that like organizing exposure to just like realigning a group was definitely useful for the practice of organizing volunteers. And I would also say the Slack was awesome. I've never seen that in any other workshop that I've participated in via Zoom or any sort of course or anything. It was always extremely, it was just about emails. If you have the person's email, maybe you can get in touch, maybe they'll get back to you. And with the Slack, it was a lot more convenient. Like if someone said something awesome in class while they're talking, I could literally shoot them a Slack like, hey, can you expand on this point that you said? That sounds really interesting. What is the name of the random organization you told me about, And having that network built in to the dynamics sort of took the pressure off too, because you got to see like for yourself that you weren't the only one who was brand new to the experience. Other people who were like had exposure and recent experience, and people who had some long-term experience. We're sort of like, building on top of each other to figure out what the potential could be. And for myself, I was surprised by the fact that back in school, I was the person who sort of sat in the back of the class and just let things happen around me. And I found myself like participating because I felt like I had something to say that was worthwhile, because the environment like showed me that there are people who thought similar to the way I did. And being able to like bounce ideas and hearing ideas back and forth was awesome.
I love you too so much. And not just because you're saying glowing things, but because you are like very much yourselves. And it is so nice to hear both of you loud and like you said, Ajali, like watching you change from being more in the beginning, more back in the class and being really like, I don't want to say outspoken, but being up there and like stating things and like saying what you needed to say and getting it, watching both of you grow through the 9 weeks, 8 weeks over 9 weeks, because we had Thanksgiving in there, was absolutely phenomenal and really cool. And thinking on that subject of growth, like curious about if you took advantage of the coaching that was happening. We do have like one-on-one coaching. You meet with someone, whether that be one of the staff or one of the coaches that we have. Wondering if you took advantage of that, if that was something that was interesting, if you've done coaching before, and what came out of that.
The coaching was an interesting element to everything. I mean, since we didn't have a lot of time together, I was paired up with Erin, who's awesome. Felt like meaningful interactions after we learned something specific. There were times where we'd be introduced to a new topic that I wasn't really familiar about. And like with doing like the background research to make sure that I'm following on with the course, like my meetings with Erin would sort of like reinforce that I was picking up on more than I like sort of like perceived in the moment. And she sort of like helped me align to the expectations of like using all of this information that we're learning, like, and understanding that, most of this insight that we're like being coached to like understand, and like all the training that we're doing in terms of being campaign managers, like actually has a lot more real world like value than it seems on the surface. Or like for someone who like me, who's not really, I guess, politically inclined, it seemed a lot less stressful to know that if I needed anything, I could always reach out to Erin to, ask something specific, or to like calm me down a little bit if I'm feeling overwhelmed with information. She was able to help me break things down if need be. And it definitely made me feel a lot more relaxed with the like the expectation.
Yeah, the one-on-one coaching was definitely a added addition to the program that I didn't know we were going to get. And I know I gave Cal the runaround in the beginning because our schedule just did not. He wanted to do Tuesday. I'd be like, we have class Tuesday. He's like, oh, that's right. But he would work with you and work around your schedule and get with you on when it was appropriate and when you had the time to do so. And like Ashley was saying, you could ask them the questions that you may not have gotten answers to, or you didn't want to put in the Slack because you didn't want to seem like that guy who forgot to do this. You could go one-on-one with that coach and have them explain it more. So that was a great aspect on coaching. And I hope it's something that stays around because the coaching one-on-one was definitely beneficial. And Cal did a great job keeping me on track when I didn't show up on time. And he called me on my phone and be like, hey, I'm like, oh, my bad, we're in here, let's go.
I think that's so nice to hear. Coaching is definitely sticking around. The one-on-one coaching is a component of the program, 100%. I really liked how you said that, like, little accountability poke, and at the same time, it was like, oh, that's cool, don't worry. And I think that's very much like what we try to embody in the program of like, here are these expectations, and life happens, existence happens. That is amazing. I'm curious, what was the most challenging part of the cohort for you, whether it be parts of the curriculum, interpersonal, anything, the most challenging part of the cohort for you?
I would say the most challenging part of the cohort was probably when we got to that van tool, because it was something that I didn't know existed and I had never seen it before. So it really, and it's so complex in what it can and can't do. That was the part where I was like, man, I got to really get my hands around this because it's a tool that can be so beneficial to a candidate, but I also got to make sure that I do it correctly, because to get the demographics down to a point of what, like, just the whole thing, the whole features that Van just brought to the table was awesome. So I'm glad you guys were able to get us access to play around with that and be able to actually go in and mess it up and not mess up anything, in a sense, if that makes sense, but just being able to do that. And I'll say the second challenging part was sometimes pulling the participation out of the other people in your breakout sessions, because some people were shy. So you go into the breakout session and be like, hey guys, you're gonna come off mute? Am I gonna sit here by myself and do this? And then just trying to push them. So that was probably the other challenging part, was sometimes, people were having an off day. They didn't really feel like talking. And then we got thrown into a breakout session and they didn't have a choice. So that was probably the other challenging part.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for me. The most intimidating part was the exposure to Van and PDI. Definitely was a lot going on there. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever watched Doctor Who. It's just like the TARDIS is bigger on the inside. Like, really, I didn't realize the amount of data that sort of like goes into this sort of like dynamic, and I also didn't realize the various ways that you could use data to like sort of like support this vital campaign work and organizing in general. So it's sort of like put new perspective of, I guess, the things that I have to put on my to-do list to figure out. And I feel like I was inspired to like sort of start learning a little bit more about data in particular, maybe learn a language or two so I can like participate in this momentum. Participating like the Blue Bonnets or something sounds cool. And I would also say in the breakout chats, just like you were saying, the challenging part for me was like not getting the group to have the discussion, but like when it's time for us to move on and allow the next person to speak, like since the rooms were sort of like had a time limit, I sort of was trying to be mindful of the fact that everyone sort of needs like X amount of time to like be able to say their piece and move on, so that there's like equal opportunity for everyone. And I guess like because we sort of just like got too relaxed listening to some person speak and then responding to that thing, sort of like became more of a party than an organized discussion sometimes. So definitely need to work on that.
I love that, because that's so much of like this idea of thinking of like what are the other things, not just the assignment, but like you're talking about like how you get people organized, how leadership comes out. You're all hitting such amazing pieces, and that's honestly why I was excited to bring you. Now, here's a question though. What happens if someone is hesitant and you're talking to someone and they're like, "Oh, I really want to do this, but I'm scared." Or I'm nervous that I don't have the same leadership style that you and Ashley do, or I'm not sure if I can, pull everyone like, hey, let's all talk like you and Daniel did. What would you say to someone that was like nervous that this wasn't the space for them?
That's a good question. I feel like occupying space is like a touchy button for a lot of people because of circumstance and trauma and such. So a lot of people don't feel comfortable like taking up more space than they feel like they're allowed sometimes. Um, with that, I feel like it's important to realize that, outside of the cohort, outside of your family, outside of the community in general, you're here for a reason. Your voice has value, your ideas have weight, and because you have the capacity to grow, you have the capacity to learn, uh, your value in the space that you have here is undeniable. So like with trying to like tiptoe towards feeling confident enough to like say the first uncomfortable thing to test the waters, I feel like it's important to realize that it's okay to take your time. No one's pushing you, no one's pressuring you. You can sort of sit back and listen if you want to, but there comes a point where you do notice that like little sensation in your chest that's telling you to say something. If you ignore it over and over again, like that's sort of like limiting your capacity to be great, right? Your capacity to learn and grow and to connect, most importantly. So like testing the waters just like means like just breaking up the like objective into little bite-sized chunks. Like if you don't want to say your whole point, maybe start out with just like telling someone you think something's cool, maybe eventually you work your way up to like explaining why you thought that thing was cool. And eventually with enough practice, you'll be able to just like say whatever thing plops up into your mouth to whoever without feeling remorse, shame, or like there's no compassion for deserving of you, if that makes sense. Despite everything, you are enough and your words hold value. You are everything. And this program would be nothing without you as a member.
Yeah, I completely agree with that on Ashley. And I think too is once you find out what the person's passionate about, poking at their passion will allow you to kind of come out more and more. So I know I used to ask some of the antagonizing questions in the group. Like I know the one time I asked, is water wet? And that made everybody come off mute because everybody was like, wait, what do you mean is water wet? And so I think that sometimes just being able to throw something in there that people would be like, wait, and then it made people kind of come out of their shell. And so now when we got in the group, it's like, Daniel, what kind of crazy question do you have for us today to kind of kick things off? And then we would go from there. But it's like Ashley said, just realizing that whatever you're passionate about, unless you say something, it's not going to change. So you have to take a stand and say, hey, I can't continue to sit in the back and just let things continuously happen around me. I have to finally speak up. So once you poke at someone's passion, it will pull out of them what they want to say and drive the point from there.
What advice do you have for people that might be interested in joining the cohort or have already signed on? And before I completely throw it in, I'm going to spotlight Hannah so she can join us as another cohort member. So the question for everyone, like what advice do you have for like future cohort members, folks that are interested in doing the cohort, folks that are signed up already and about to start February 1st when the next one, or in the future when we run a cohort? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking the best advice I could give someone who's thinking about joining the cohort is to trust your interests and to trust the fact that you found yourself interested in this program. At first, I was even uncertain for sure whether or not I was going to be able to get everything out of it that I wanted, or even if I was going to come out of it with some sort of expectation or end result in mind. I just tried not to focus on that and sat with what was the program just was, and trusted Jen and trusted Frida and trusted Spencer and the team. And I loved the way it all ended up being presented and working out, and the facilitation was incredible. So at the end of the day, the hesitation I had around it or any confusion that I had around my interest in electoral politics ended up not mattering at all, because the container that the program was in was so intentionally made, and that really came across and allowed me to absorb as much as I could.
I think Daniel unmuted first.
I was about to say, go in there, ladies first. But yeah, I would say that the advice I would give to anybody is to, with change, it's always going to be scary at first. But I would say if you're really trying to jump into the arena and make sure that we're effectively seeing the change that this country needs to see, then this program is where you need to be at, because it gave us the tools that allowed us to now be equipped with our toolbox that allows us to go out and be an active change in our communities, whether it be a local issue that you have or a national issue. You now know how to navigate that space and be able to work in there. So if you're timid or scared about being around new people or trying to learn, I'll just say, just come in and allow yourself to just jump wholeheartedly in and just allow this training to guide you, because it's, like I said, it breaks it down from fundamental and builds you up through the end, to where at the end, everybody, I don't think there was a shy person in our group by the time we got to the end of the program, because they had got comfortable around everybody and knew that we weren't going to attack you for your issue. We were actually going to listen to what you had to say and then see that viewpoint and navigate from there.
Respect that 100%, both of you guys actually. And I would say for myself, the advice I would share is don't second guess yourself. If you're stumbling upon this program and you felt like a random fire awaken when you're reading through the pamphlet, and you're sort of like had this lingering thought of you in the seat of program manager, well, campaign manager, and you felt that confidence in that role, if you felt inspired, if you felt anything at all, even just like a little linger of something, join. That's your body telling you something. And I think it's worth it for you to acknowledge, like, just take a look and figure out if that path would fit right for you. I think you could surprise yourself.
If I could add, I'd also say, like, in addition to trusting yourself and your interests, is also trust the people closest to you that know you well. So if you've had people in your life that are reflecting back to you that you have good leadership qualities, or they would vote for you if you ever ran for office one day, like, that kind of support from your closest friends and community members that, see you be yourself. Like, I think people tend to like brush off compliments like that. And I definitely encourage people, if you've ever been reflected back, like, wow, I think you're a great leader, or you're inspiring. If anyone's ever told you that, like, join the program, because it's really going to help you learn to connect and share that inspiration in an effective way, and to be part of an effective movement. Like, it definitely helps operationalize that inspiration or whatever spark that people are seeing in you.
Absolutely. And y'all, oh, sorry, Ashley, you came off mute. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, damn right, own that power.
I love it. You all alluded to that no one was shy and everyone was chatting and stuff like that. How were interactions with the other cohort members? Like, basically, you're, like you said in the beginning, in breakout rooms, you're thrown in a breakout room with strangers to have these deep conversations and these learning experiences. I'd love to hear like what your experiences were around that. If anything stands out, if you're like, I love everyone, I hate everyone, I think everyone is ready to join a presidential, I want to elect everyone to office. Like, where are y'all right now with the other cohort members?
I would say that that was the best aspect of it, was getting to meet people from different backgrounds and viewpoints and being able to connect with them through this cohort. And then the fact that there was events that happened at other times that your cohort may not have been meeting. So it made you have to jump in, and now you got to meet people from the other cohorts that were going through at the same time as you as well. Really worked from there. And then sometimes finding people that had the same kind of interest that you had. So now you know that you have somebody else that you can call on when you're trying to work through a particular issue. So I have used that in the Slack now, to where I have a group of other people that we thought about affordable housing as being an issue. So now we've kind of started working on how can we effectively work in our states and our cities on how we can, come together and use policies from your state, from my state, that could help us, pull those things together. So now you have somebody that you can lean on in other avenues and other backgrounds that allows you to kind of equip yourself to be able to go forward and not feel like you're doing it alone.
With like the potential to like network with people that I'm already comfortable and familiar with, it feels like I sort of have a built-in community now of people who I can like send random articles to and see if anyone bites, and sort of feel a lot more like there's a community around me, rather than just being like a solo activist or organizer who sort of has an idealist dream that nobody else has. For myself personally, it was nice being able to sort of just like look around at things that other people are posting and sort of like tiptoe the waters towards like actually connecting with them. Personally, I've always been awful at networking, so this sort of provided practice for me to just branch out a little bit and ask questions. I've been reaching out for help regarding like our final project and the proposal, and it's sort of been helping me feel a lot more at ease that I'm not doing everything by myself, that like the ideas and articles that I'm interested in, political ideas and otherwise, are not just like niche ideas, because there are people out there who are actively engaging with me. Like it's not just me and my little friends in my head, just to make a joke.
Yeah, I really loved how the way that you would shuffle, the way that the breakout rooms would be shuffled constantly. So anytime we would have a topic and being engaging with it every day, every week, every class, you're on a different group. You're talking to someone new and you're getting to know someone a bit more. But what I really liked is how fun it was to play with stepping up and stepping back. So that's one of the grounding principles of the cohort intentions and the container that's being held, the space, is that you practice stepping up if you normally shy away, or you practice stepping back if you normally are a gung-ho leader. And I loved playing with that myself, having a decent amount of leadership experience and being very comfortable leading a small or large group. I loved stepping back and seeing people, decide on their own, like, okay, am I going to step up? Am I going to, seeing who is normally quiet in the big room and seeing if they would, speak up and step forward in the smaller rooms was cool. And seeing people's growth, and then also experimenting with my own growth and my own edge and what made me uncomfortable. And it was great because I was constantly self-reflective. The container and the facilitation is also very intentional with that, asking you to constantly be in reflection of how you're engaging and how you're showing up, whether it's in that space for the cohort training or whether it's for your work, your organizing work and your electoral work and stuff. So that was really cool. I loved the axioms of the day being a really great topic for us to just talk philosophically about at the very beginning. And I loved how different and what's the word? I'm losing it, but it was so perfect in the sense that it had just the right amount of structure and allowed for, I'm sure, each cohort to have its own really different dynamic. So I liked that. As I didn't get to experience other cohorts as much, but I loved being able to see that. Yeah.
I love, I can safely say, as someone who was in all three cohorts, y'all were so different. so every energy in the nighttime, the daytime, and the weekend cohort, incredibly different. Just a few more questions and thoughts for y'all. And I want to just keep you to our normal time and never let you go, but I will be so respectful of everyone watching and everyone's time. I'm curious what's going on for you right now. What are you thinking about right now? What are you working on right now? What are you trying to achieve right now? Or what's next for you coming up? Like, what are you looking towards? Are you looking towards finding something for the 2022 cycle? Are you looking to be more issue-based or electoral-based? Like, what's up for you right now and what next?
I would say for myself personally, my main focus has been the post cohort campaign proposal. It's been, I guess, like generating a lot of like synaptic energy for me, specifically because these are concepts that I didn't personally think about on a regular basis. Now I'm sort of like considering the political climate as a whole and what the standards look like. I'm trying to figure out what the values of the people who are holding positions of power in office. And I'm also, what I'm gearing up for this year is sort of like trying to identify my own values in a particular candidate who's has an upcoming election. Um, so I can like participate in practicing all of the skills that we've like gone over with campaign in the cohort. And it feels less intimidating to actually feel like comfortable putting out feelers out there and posting my resume for these specific campaign manager roles and field organizer roles, because it feels I feel a lot more at ease with the expectation of being a person who can participate in like this political climate. And my goal is to one day use all of these resources and to have experience with participating on various campaigns so that I can run an office position one day. Not entirely sure what it is going to be about, not even entirely sure what my label would be, but I think this is a worthwhile exploration to figure out what that could potentially look like. So I'm sort of like, I don't know, going as hard as I can on this proposal so I can have like a foundation for what that might look like.
Yeah, I definitely am grateful that this program filled in the gaps for me that existed in my knowledge. It filled in a lot of knowledge gaps that I had around political work. Definitely, what's next for me is similarly still working on that final campaign project and campaign plan, campaign proposal. I'm actually applying it to a local election in Fayetteville, North Carolina for city council. I'm helping Mario with his run for city council there. And so applying it to a specific race that's ongoing is definitely really helpful. And I'm very excited to see where that campaign leads. I think that we're definitely setting up for a potentially successful run. So I'm very excited to be part of that. That this is my very first electoral campaign that I've been a part of, and I've been an activist for over a decade. So it's really interesting to bring so much history and knowledge of issue-based organizing and to see the way that this program filled in the gaps for me and allowed me to understand how I can absorb new knowledge and complete a skill set to be available and to be a tool myself for amazing campaigns and amazing candidates that I think would be fantastic. Yeah. And also I've been told I should run for office, and I've considered it throughout my life. So maybe one day I'll run for office. I'm worried I'm a little too radical, but we'll see. So I'm really excited just to continue to be a leader and to lend my skills wherever they are most needed and to incredible candidates and leaders in our community, whether it's an electoral campaign or to continue my work. I've been working in the drug policy community for years, doing drug policy reform work, federal marijuana marijuana legislation, legalization work, opioid issues. So I'm continuing to work in drug policy reform, and we'll probably continue to maintain that involvement for throughout the years and just do some electoral work on the side.
So I am too trying to finish that beast of a document that's due from there. But I think I'm an overthinker. I'm done with it. I just keep going back and nitpicking myself on it. So one day I'm just going to hit send and send it to Jen and just be done with it. But I kind of got active here locally. I joined I got selected to be on the state attorney's council to shape reform for our local area. So I'm currently working on his committee and, going in and reviewing their policies and working on how we can change and shape things for, Black and brown individuals like myself. So that way the policies don't just kind of throw us out and are not as, how you say, archaic as they have been. And then I've also been selected to work with Stephanie Dukes, who is running against Sabatini in a race to work on her campaign. So in the state of Florida. So just getting very, very active. And then a part of a fraternity, which is Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and I currently serve as our first vice state director. So now I'm mobilizing all of our chapters around the Voting Acts right and just join that. So we have a hunger strike that'll be launching on the 10th of January. We're asking all brothers out there to take a hunger strike for 24 hours to get with our brother James Madison, who has been doing a hunger strike since I think late November is what he's been on. So on January 10th, we'll be asking all brothers across the entire country to go a day and fast for 24 hours to join him on that hunger strike. And for those who want to continue, but we got to see voting rights, change in this country and work from there. And then hopefully in the future, everybody keeps telling me I'm gonna run for office, but I have been kind of pushing back. I'm like, Hannah, I don't see it, but if that's what y'all say, y'all see, we may see something running from there. So trying to work, but this program has definitely been beneficial and allowed me to just step up and have a voice more now than what I had before. So definitely kudos to Jen and the team for pushing us and pulling things out of us that we didn't know we had in ourselves.
The last thing I want to open up just in general is any lasting thoughts or feelings you'd like to share about the program, what's going on, the cohort. You've got like the staff like in tears practically up here, real talk. But truly, like, y'all are overthinkers. But do you have any lasting? You all are my overthinkers. Everyone in the campaign manager training program, I think, was a little bit of an overthinker. And I think that shows how much you all care. So I just want to open up the floor to see if you have any lasting thoughts or feelings that you'd like to drop off before we give a good old go fight win and close out for the night.
Well, I'll jump in there first. I will say Renew has changed a lot of perspectives that I had before the campaign manager training. From the first time I sat down with Spencer for my interview, and I know at the end I was like, "Hey, did I get in?" And he was like, "You'll get the email." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So, just waiting from that moment, then, being that you're going to join and kind of jump in from there, from being thrown into that first breakout session. I would say that if you are looking for a way to get active in your community and you don't know how, and you're looking for an organization that is going to equip you with the tools that is needed, this would be a great choice for you. And it's going to allow you to network, meet people from around the country, and also gain the knowledge that is applicable for you to be able to go out and now effectively work in your communities or work on a campaign, whether you be in communications down to helping somebody fundraise to just being an organizer. This program is going to give you the tools that's needed and that will allow you to be successful in the real world. So thank you, Jen, Frida, Spencer, everybody, for always pushing us and having our support. And also, please do not think that this program, they're going to be on you to the point to where they are very manageable throughout this program. They will work with you. So never be afraid to communicate, what's going on in your life and what's, happening with you, because they will work with you, and you will find that they actually sometimes may even have tools and resources available to you to help you during that tough time. So please don't hesitate to communicate and reach out to the team.
For me, I would say that this has been an experience. Just like to sum it up, I was participating in various kinds of workshops for organizing just to like understand what like the potential here could be. It felt so like jumbled up. There were like always so many resources to try to figure out things. There were ways to connect with people, Facebook groups and all this stuff. And it felt so like discombobulated trying to piece together some idea of what I can do to help in this like fight for progressive power generally. So I would say that this program helped me sort of like bridge the gap in terms of not feeling as overwhelmed and stressed out about like trying to make those random pieces that were introduced to me work in my favor. Um, and everything was more accessible than I've ever seen before, even like in the academic setting where most things are just like out of reach. As much as we call it like a campaign training school, campaign manager training school, it's not really school at all. It's sort of like educational exposure, more so than anything, where you sort of have a built-in network and resources like up the spout that sort of work in tandem to try to like help you sort out what your path would look like, just generally. And despite the fact that like I didn't feel like, I guess, personally inept to understand what it was I was like walking into, now I feel a lot more at ease that I'm not crazy when I consider that it's worth it to have these kind of conversations just generally, and it's worth it to sort of like aspire to participate just generally in my community, because clearly I have a stake here too, right? So I appreciate the effort you guys put into like making this as like comfortable and intimate, for lack of better terms, because it felt like natural, just like making that first transition after the first class when everyone's just like, after we got like raptured into the breakout room the first time, and we're just like, what happened? You know? We were able to like laugh and collaborate more than anything. There weren't as many like moments of dead space. There was always something going on, but there weren't as many distractions as I've had in other workshops where you can really hear the person speaking in front of you, and it didn't really matter what was going on, it didn't really matter what they're saying. You're just here because the course said the time is like the schedule says now. You know what I mean? That makes sense. It felt like being in the room felt like there was a reason for me to be here. We came together for something specific, and we sort of just like went in as soon as the time started to the point the time ended. We were sort of like in that moment with each other, and I feel like these moments are like awesome, and I feel like that capacity to have these like tremendous moments of collaborative energy can be expanded like beyond reaches that we can even like perceive.
Yeah, I want to echo a lot of what you just said, Ashley. I definitely think it was one of the most accessible programs, if not the most accessible program that I have been a part of in a long time. And I've done a lot. Like I said, been an activist for over a decade and have seen so many different programs, conferences, blah, blah, blah. And it's so hard to build an effective community container, learning space, room online. It's so freaking hard. And the team really did a great job. Like I was blown away at how accessible and by accessible, I mean like there's all these different avenues to access the information. If you're not a visual or audio person and it's hard for you to pay attention during class, then you can use the campaign manual and access all that information yourself and learn how you want to supplement the material. It was incredibly wonderfully, and the Google Docs and just all of that, all those details that Jen did and building the curriculum really showed through. Yeah, I cannot commend and applaud the facilitation of the space anymore because I was nervous about it personally, because I'm kind of a facilitator nerd myself. And so I had high standards and it exceeded those standards. So I really got to say, like, props off. Yes. And then it's very much like, of course, like any program, you get out the program, what you put in. So you got to show up. And if you're not someone that shows up, don't waste your time signing up for a program that you have some interest in, but you're not going to show up for and get the most out of it. Because what you leave with is incredible. So show up, be there, be part of that room. I mean, it was like, I could have watched the recordings the whole time. I could have not showed up to the actual time and watched all the recordings. It would not have been the same, because being there live in the moment, talking to these people on the screen right now, that we are in a room together. We are holding a space. We're having a space. We're communicating. We're being in community and learning together. So that is really powerful. I'm grateful that I was privileged enough to have a room to go to like this one right now. And I came here every single time and I just, sit down and do my thing and pet my cats when they got sad and were like, hey, you've been online for 2 hours. So it was really wonderful to be part of this community, to be part of this learning space, and to walk away with so much in terms of skills, new tools and learning and skills, and also to walk away with people, connections, community members, like leads on jobs. It's absolutely incredible. Like it is. So it's an accessible program, great container facilitation skills that are demonstrated along with an incredible content and curriculum. And the value of what you walk away with it's invaluable. It's priceless, and the training is freaking free. So I cannot stress enough that if you are someone who loves to learn and engage and to be part of communities and grow, and you will show up and you will, bring something to this space, just even if that's yourself as you are, and you're bringing yourself and you're showing up, then please do that and please join.
Y'all, I adore each and every one of you. And I will say thank you, everyone, for showing up tonight, for showing up all of those weeks, all of this amazingness, because as we know, and as we've heard in so many of the sessions, that like the movement needs us. The movement needs each and every one of us, including folks that are still waking to what needs to be happening in this movement. So I want to say thank you, the three of you, Daniel, Ashley, and Hannah. Thank you so much. Everyone watching this, thinking about joining, thinking about being part of it, thinking about digging in, thinking about running for office, whatever the case, thank you as well. And in good old Renew tradition, before I hit stop on our beautiful recording, so we can have a bit of debrief screaming with one another, on the count of 3, we learned to do it fast. We're going to do a go fight win. This is Frida telling us to do it fast, and Spencer going along with it. So everyone take yourself off mute. And then on the count of 3, I'm going to have Spencer count it off. We're all going to do a quick, like, go fight win, not a long one, like go fight, not one of those, a real like go fight win. Okay, Spencer, can you count us off and we'll do it?
I sure can. All right, everybody, you ready for this? 1, 2, 3, go
Go fight win.
Yeah, beautiful.